Will the lost tribe of X-Men be able to make it back home to planet Earth, and will Charles Xavier be pushed too far by his loss? Well, let's hop into the pages of Immortal X-Men issue number 16 and find out what happens next together, shall we? So then, picking up from where the last issue left off, Sebastian Shaw and Selene are going over their options for trying to reclaim what is left of the island nation of Krakoa from Charles Xavier, who has essentially started a one-man rebellion to stop Shaw and his Orchis allies from exploiting the natural resources of Krakoa for their own evil ends. It's also very clear that Xavier has touched a nerve with Shaw, who, despite being able to call in a Stark Sentinel Strike team, has decided to get his hands dirty with making use out of his brand new Hellfire armor. Again, the interplay between Shaw and Selene is positively hilarious and a true high point of X-Men comics right now. Oh dear, darling, are you really still naming everything after the Hellfire Club? You're not even a member anymore. The armor itself is also wonderfully tacky, filled in with all those rich guy gold accentings that you see all the time. More on this fight later, though, as we once again turn our attention to the lost tribe of X-Men. You'll recall at the end of the previous issue, we saw that Apocalypse is also there wherever Exodus and the others are. Which is strange, because last time we checked, it looked like he was in a completely other dimension. Still, though, things have actually gotten better for the lost tribe since last we've seen them. Mother Righteous had actually managed to really ingratiate herself to all the survivors of the Hellfire Gala by leading them to another small surviving piece of Krakoa. A place with clean water and eternal summer, which means the mutants could farm, as well as easily defensible positions so that the mutants need not fear the rampaging Wolverine drones that are somehow filling this desert. Yes, it seems that the mutants are relying on Mother Righteous more and more, and just to really show how important she is to the survival of all of these people, she's used her magic powers to track down Egg, the last missing member of the Five, meaning that with him finally returned to the fold, the mutants have regained their power of resurrection. You're probably thinking to yourself, but wait, how could they do that if they don't have Cerebro? Well, guess what? Mother Righteous thought of that too, using her magic powers to access the waiting room, aka that magical soul realm that they brought up at the end of that Scarlet Witch miniseries, which honestly I haven't thought about it since then. The only person who doesn't seem to totally be sucked into Mother Righteous's laundry list of good deeds is none other than Irene Adler Destiny. Hope and Exodus think she's just being salty because Righteous is proving to be a better future seer than she's been recently. And Destiny doesn't exactly do a good job articulating her concerns about Mother Righteous, saying that if Hope did try and read her mind, her skin would probably slough off. Again, Irene has just been one of the most consistently well-written and interesting mutants since this new era of X-Men comics has began, and at the center of her character is just this deep sadness and longing for Mystique. And even after all the horrible things they've done to each other, their storyline is still one of the most heartbreakingly romantic things I've read in comics in I don't even know how long. Now back over on the island, Selene and Shaw make one final last push against Xavier. He tries to fight his hardest, but he's clearly outmatched in this situation, and with his back against the wall, Chuck decides to start playing dirty. First, he psychically reaches out to Emma Frost to get brought up to speed on everything that's been happening in the world since the fall of Krakoa. Again, remember, he cut himself off and basically wasn't taking any calls. And once Xavier discovers that Shaw has been ousted from his beloved Hellfire Club by Wilson Fisk the Kingpin, he decides to try and broker a backroom deal with Shaw. In exchange for letting Xavier live, for a little bit at least, the Professor will share with Shaw all the passwords and routing numbers for the Hellfire Club's many bank accounts. This means that Shaw could actually strike back against his most hated Emma and actually regain the one thing that it seems that he cares about more than anything else. Of course, to get all of this, it means that Shaw will also have to briefly turn against Selene and by extension Orchis, something that he is more than happy to do because, well, Shaw has always been a slimy backstabber. Before he leaves, though, Shaw and Xavier actually end up having a rather cryptic little conversation. Shaw says he's amazed that they could have pushed Professor X so far to have him become such a murderer on top of being such a scoundrel and schemer. Only here's the big twist: despite what Shaw and by extension we as the reader have been seeing, Xavier swears up and down that he hasn't actually killed anyone during his time on Krakoa. But we'll have to circle back to that in a minute. Back on the other world, we see that Exodus and Hope have been given coordinates by Mother Righteous about yet another missing mutant somewhere out there in the wilderness. To everyone's surprise, they end up finding a confused Jean Grey, but obviously that makes no sense. Jean isn't missing, she was actually killed at the Hellfire Gala, like for real. Things only serve to get even stranger though, as at that very moment Hope and Exodus come under attack by Apocalypse, or as Exodus puts it, his Satan in this biblical story that he's writing. In fact, a lot of what's going on in this weird desert with its strange Egyptian theme actually would appear to come directly from Exodus himself, him saying that he has seen all of this before in a vision. Hope, not content with these non-answers, decides to read the mind of this strange Jean Grey, only to be hit with the realization that the reason this place that they're in doesn't seem to play by any rules of any physics they know is because this place isn't on Earth or in another time. This never-ending desert, we learn, actually exists inside the White Hot Room, aka the strange splinter dimension ruled over by the Phoenix, that also serves as a kind of afterlife to those who have been avatars of the Phoenix Force over the years. So yeah, that's one pretty big damn mystery of this series solved, but believe it or not, that's not the only mystery we get an answer to in this issue, as we once again check back on in with Xavier, who decides to go deep into the bowels of Krakoa to investigate Mr. Sinister's old laboratory. It's while looking in a mirror, Xavier ends up seeing a message from Mr. Sinister telling him not to kill himself, which of course could either mean that it's Sinister running around killing all these Orchis grunts, or maybe the sinister gene that Essex was sure to put inside Xavier and some of the other members of the Quiet Council might actually not be nearly as gone and done with as we first assumed. And so that was Immortal X-Men issue number 16, everybody, and man, I gotta hand it to the whole creative team on this book. Just when I think it's starting to slow down, just when I think I can maybe feel safe dropping this one, Kieran Gillen ends up dropping not one but two huge bombs. This revelation is cool because it means this series can continue to work with characters like Jean Grey, Wolverine, and Apocalypse without having them needing to actually be physically here at the moment. If you ask me when this whole Krakoa era of X-Men began, who one of my favorite characters to follow was going to be, I bet I never would have said Destiny, and yet I am forever amazed at all the different places they take her character. In fact, it's made even more interesting by the fact if you've seen the promotional art from Comic-Con this year showing Fall of the House of X and Rise of Powers of X, Destiny isn't actually in the big group shot. This is also one of the most interesting Xavier stories we've seen in a long time. He's both punishing himself for all the horrible stuff that he had a hand in during the Krakoan era, and I know a lot of people are going to be happy that they walked back the whole cold-blooded murder thing from a few issues ago. Yes, he's still a schemer, yes, he's still duplicitous, but he's not straight up a killer. Overall, I think I feel comfortable giving this one a strong 8.5 out of 10. This was a really good X-Men book in a sea of what has been basically nothing but good X-Men books. Geez, can just a couple of these books be bad, please, or at least boring so I can feel justified dropping a couple? That'd be nice. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest, that's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.